All right, well, we will go ahead and begin with onboarding new teachers to improve school culture, and I'll hand it over to Katie.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. So, as you said, we're going to be talking about onboarding new teachers to improve school culture. And just to clarify, new teachers doesn't mean new to the profession. It could be that, but it could also be new to the school site. So, my name is Katie Begen, and then I have Jen Weimer with me. Hello. And she's at our site as a TSA for intervention, and then the BSU advisor, so the Black Student Union advisor. And we have our contact info in case anybody is asking or wants more clarification or anything along those lines. And then Dawn Caglia. Hi. And she is also at our site as a TSA for intervention. And then the three of us are on the freshman success team as well. And so I wanted to bring them in because we bring different perspectives and different connections to the content. And then I'm Katie Begen. I teach ninth grade biology for the medical pathway here at Duncan, and I teach Women's Alliance. So as we begin, if there's any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask, or you can put them in the chat, and then maybe our moderator could just let me know. But we want to have a nice, easy flow to it. So feel free to jump in, ask clarification or connections of any sort, and we'll have like a good time. So before we begin, I just want you to, I wonder if I can get this to go away. There we go. It knew. I want you to reflect back to your first day of work. So maybe you were new to the profession or just new to the site, but how did you feel? Were you anxious? Were you scared? Were you kind of jittery? Did you feel super calm and confident? What did your new boss or staff do to support you? Were you welcomed with open arms, or were you just kind of looped in? Was there an onboarding? And then what would you have liked to hear? I know when I start at a new site, because I've worked at 3 different school sites, I like to know what's going on. My first day here, under a different administration, nobody told me that there was no bells. So I just didn't know what the schedule was, and that we don't use bells here. So think about those things as we're going through, but would anybody like to unmute and share any of their answers?
I will share.
Okay.
Um, I work a couple of different jobs, but at one of them I received a super long document, which was kind of overwhelming, but I also do a lot of like tech related stuff that I needed to catch up on. So having that kind of, um, document that I could refer back to and try things out and then come back and refresh information was really helpful to me.
Right. And really everything that we're going to talk about today could be used in any industry, not just education. It just so happens we all work in education. That's where our expertise is. Thank you for sharing, Jessica. Would anybody else like to share? It's okay. All right. Yeah, you want to share?
I can share. I can share. So it's my second year here at Duncan. And so last year was my first day here. And I came right before school started. I actually worked with the vice principal in another department. And so one thing that he did when I came and showed up was he actually took me around the entire school. He took me to the entire school, every classroom, and basically introduced me to whoever was here. So I got to know and see a lot of faces. At first, it was a little overwhelming because he said this person and lots of names, but it was really nice to have that opportunity to go around. And actually, I'd never seen the school in its entirety before I started, so it was nice to go through and see all the rooms and all the areas. Duncan's a very unique school. We'll talk about it later, but it was really great to just kind of get my face out there and get to see people because I didn't know anyone except for him really when I started last year. So I really appreciated that, just someone having that, opportunity to take me around and show me and meet the people I was able to. So yeah, that's my experience.
Sorry, just I have to check in there.
Yeah, I can share my experience too. I started 18 years ago at the same site, but just like Katie Begen, I didn't know that we didn't have bells here. And I remember first period smiling at my students in front of a podium. I was new, and they were smiling back, and it was probably for a good 2 to 3 minutes. I'm embarrassed to say, before a young lady raised her hand and says, "Hi, welcome to Duncan. We don't have bells here." So just little things like that I would have loved to have known. I did get a tour. It was basically, I just showed up. I inherited everything that was in the classroom. And I kind of had to figure things out on my own, which made it so difficult. It felt a little isolating at times. So I'm so glad that things have changed, where there's a lot of onboarding, a lot of tours that are being given, because that wasn't the case when I first started. So I would have loved to know, and even I didn't even know how to make copies. So that was or how to call in sick. So yeah, that was kind of my feeling in the first year. So I know that going into teaching and stuff, there's a lot that we're not taught. And I felt like it's really important that there's teachers, whether they're new or they are coming from a different school, they know the support system that is on the staff. A lot of new teachers don't know what they don't know. And I think that it's so nice when you have a mentor or someone checking in to kind of see if you need anything. Because a lot of times, new teachers specifically, they don't like to say they need stuff. Sometimes they're a little too shy or they're embarrassed of not knowing. So it's really important, in my opinion, is to support them however you can, asking questions. Even if, I don't think anything is too obvious to share with them, because there's a lot of new things. Teachers have to wear many different hats. We're many little counselors, we're many little admin. We're doing so much in the classroom that I think it's so much for new teachers to know. On the first day, it's kind of a fire hose of information, but it's good for them to understand who's there, who's in the room, who's your go-to person for all of the things that your school has. And I know one of the things that what I thought was really important when we were getting new teachers was that our department chair made sure that new teachers weren't put into situations to be like, oh, now you're going to coach. Because, sometimes people like to say, oh, the new teachers can do all this stuff. And so it's good for them to just, focus on their craft, focus on their classroom. And I think from there, you'll have more teachers that would like to be more involved, but I think we were protected the first 2 years and say, we'd love for you to get involved, but not yet. We encourage you to kind of, look around, get a taste of everything, but, kind of hold off. And I think that oftentimes helps teachers to say, all right, I think I'm ready. And I think I have a little bit of balance here to go forward.
And avoiding that burnout.
Burnout, absolutely.
The more turnover, the more you have to redo all these systems, and it can just be very daunting. So focusing on keeping your teachers happy and there consistently is a huge thing for any profession. And I saw that there was the chat here. Oh, thank you, Adele. So she's on duty. I have a Teams coffee catch up with my team. Oh, okay. So you had a little like informal catch up. I love that. I work remote, so I just had an online meeting with HRD. That can be a little isolating by yourself, Adele. Lots of documentation. Always so fun to get a big worksheet. Thank you. And I'll try and keep checking on that. I'm not used to using Zoom, so we'll have to have some growing pains together. So it's no secret that teachers and a lot of other professions as well are burning out because of various situations. Maybe it's the level of support, maybe it's the workloads, the work-life balance, staffing issues. I know I teach biology, so I'm a domain specific. credentials, so I can't be moved a lot, but other like English and history, they can be moved a lot. And moving each year, that's all new lessons, all new resources, new teams. And so that can really add to it. And then we also know that teaching is not just teaching anymore. It's huge mental health lessons and supports. And you have a lot of different behaviors and a lot of different needs of your students and yourself. So Houston Chronicle had just kind of written an article on this. And so I wanted to highlight that 75% of over 3,000 K through 12 educators reported experiencing burnout. So, and 68% wanted to leave. And even I love my job and I feel very happy and blessed to be here, but I've even thought about leaving as well because it does, some years it's different and some years are very difficult to kind of still love the profession.
Yeah, so what can a school do to support new teachers? You know, like I said, like nothing is too obvious. We talked to a teacher that was onboarded this year, and she said that she was thankful someone talked to her about the bell schedule, you know, because we have many different bell schedules. We also have a lot of events that are on campus, and it's like, how do we sign up? What are these events? I think we sometimes assume everyone knows, you know, and then at our school, we have language that's we understand, you know, DP Whale, you hear us talk about slows, but a lot of the new teachers might not know that. So I'm just catching them up on some of the site-specific language, even signing up for supervision. So just the little things from, you know, just the logistics of day-to-day to also emergencies. So what do you do during a fire drill? What do you do during a lockdown? What do you do if a student has a seizure? What do you do if you need a student to use the phone? Do they know how to call out? So there's a lot that sites can do, and we're going to go over that a lot today, but I think it really goes down to all the systems that are in place at your school and how well teachers know about it.
So what makes our site unique? So here at Duncan, we are a magnet school. So we draw students from all of our districts. So we serve about 74,000 students, I believe, in our district, and they come from all over. So we have a little bit of a later start time just to allow for students to be able to come to school, which is great. We start around 9 o'clock, but that does mean we end later. So we're I believe 3:50 is when we end. And so we have that opportunity for students to come. We also here have a job site. We have 2 different pathways. I think we kind of mentioned a little bit. There's a medical and science pathway that Katie teaches, the 9th grade biology. We also have it's called IDATA. So it's the
Industrial
pathway. Thank you. So we have 2 kind of ways for our students to get some hands-on experience, certification, real life experience. Our juniors and seniors actually go off campus and go work in community areas, and they actually practice the things that they're learning. So we have that opportunity for our students, which is really unique. I know it's kind of spreading to other campuses, and other schools are kind of taking that same approach. But as far as I know, like I said, it's my 2nd year here, so I'm still learning everything. But it's for what I've seen, it just offers students so many opportunities to really have a pathway to college. That is one thing we focus on, but then there's trades, right? So they can go right in, they get certifications. We have a lot of students that go into nursing. We have a great nursing program here, and they can start working as LVNs and then go into the nursing program and then move that way. So as far as I'm concerned, I felt like that really makes this site unique from where I've been and what I've seen.
Yeah, like Jen said, you know, we're really focused on being college and career ready. We do have a lot of trades. We have even a heavy truck, which is kind of unheard of in a lot of places. Our students compete in the trades, but we also have AP classes. So we want our students college and career ready. So with that, there's a lot of higher expectations. We have a little stricter dress code. We do have like today's Workwear Wednesday, where students are they have to wear the workwear. So you'll see kids in scrubs. You'll see students out in the shop. They have to have certain like steel toe boots. So they're right there. Their whole outfits. Yeah. So there's higher expectations. But yeah, so that's one of the ways that we're unique. Another is the DP way, like I said, about language that's specific to our campus. we wanted our students to follow a set of guidelines and expectations, and it was from our Fresno Unified's graduate profile. And that graduate profile, it was just very long. It was just a lot. And so what we did is we said, well, who can better than our students create a way to condense it? And it's created by a student for students. So we put it out after we tried and failed miserably. We sent it out to the kids, and the kids were like, well, that's easy. Call it the DP way. And so that's where you have, that we're going to be ethically driven, problem solvers, collaborative workers. So they took something from the district. And so that's what we follow. We'll do that for advisories. We give points based off of that. So yeah, and then we do have a very interesting bell schedule. If you see, I don't know if also
There's 6 different schedules.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of schedules. One of the reasons we have our schedule look that way is in high school, we have a parent-teacher conferences, which is also different from a lot of high schools where we invite parents in the fall, which is our largest one, and also in the spring to come on campus. And we give them 15 minutes. We sit them at a table with 3 or 4 of their teachers so they can look at next steps, possibilities. So that's another way that we're very unique as well.
And when you're thinking about how to onboard your new people, whether you're in teaching or in another profession, you have to think about what makes you unique. When I first started here 8 years ago, I didn't understand the different pathways, and I came from middle school. And so I remember calling my friend after the first day and saying, I told the kids to do their work and they did it. And I had never had that in my professional career because I taught middle school and they're just 11 and wild. So coming to a new site or coming to a new profession or new job, you have to think about what makes you unique. And then you have to convey that to your new people so that they understand. Just like, I mean, we've brought up the bell schedule like 7 times because it was just such a big deal. And you have to think about those things, and maybe writing them out can be really powerful, or going through your own company site or school site, like website, and seeing how does it differ and like what key components are they going to need in order to be successful.
And we also have linked learning too. We work as teams,
Yeah,
so
there's a lot of sub teams here.
Yeah. So this is our onboarding sequence. This is relatively new. I think it's for the past 2 years. And all new teachers, either new to the classroom or new to the site, are invited to be a part of this sequence. I'm able to only talk about one of them. And then I know that Jen participated in a lot of them. So the first one was with Ms. Saru on the use of our current systems. As part of the intervention team, we have a referral system that's very important. I mean, this is just about safety for our teachers to know. So I know, like, when I first started, it was the red pass. Send the kid to the office with the red pass and you hope they made it. This one we have a little different. It's online. It's through a form, a Microsoft form that teachers can fill out if there's a behavior issue, if there's a social emotional concern, or if there is a dress code or academic. So a teacher can fill that out. We do, that goes to the intervention team. There's a good size amount of people that are on this form that will jump on, like counselors are looking at the academic, our social emotional team, our re-engagement teacher, they're looking at those referrals, and then Jen and I get behaviors along with our resource counseling assistant. So we're always there to help. We even, we even make sure we tell teachers that, listen, if it's an emergency, this is what you do. You call the front office. There's always a plan. We can wait for the referral. If we need to remove the student or if you need help, this is who you call. The other thing is that, and this kind of happens, so I really like to share this, where in my classroom, I was an English teacher for 17 years before I went into my TSA position. And I stepped out for an IEP, and I had an RSP teacher that was covering my class. And this was for about like 5 minutes. And in that time, one of my students had a seizure. And that RSP teacher told the student, please use the phone. And I have right above my phone, in case of an emergency, please call. So our students have to dial 9 to dial out. And so because I had that phone number there, the student knew exactly where to call, and the teacher didn't have to worry about grabbing the phone or anything like that. So, I always kind of share that with new teachers, with my experiences, so that they have a plan. They know what to do. I mean, we've had instances where fights break out. Like, what do you do, right? And so we always kind of make sure that there is an understanding of here's a protocol, here's a procedure, even being a mandated reporter. Now that was just my part, but what Mrs. Zaru, who's an English teacher here, she did, which I thought was beautiful. She's talked about everyone on campus. Like, why would you talk to the office manager if you need to order supplies? Or why would you talk to maintenance? Or who's your FTA rep? That's our union rep, just a lot of things that like I said, we had to find out on our own. But it was nice to know. She also talked about different events on campus. So it was kind of a nice welcome to Duncan, but it also included some of the heavy stuff of what to do in case of what.
And then I was in charge of the linked learning onboarding. At our site, we have a pretty complex system where we connect teachers from different content areas to make large scale project-based learning. And so that coming in as a new teacher, new to the profession or new to the site, would be very overwhelming if we didn't take time to have a space to explain it and show expectations. And so this implementation has been really powerful. It's still a work in progress. And then as we go through, you'll see kind of how we will break things down and to best benefit your staff.
Mm-hmm. And I can speak, I attended actually through all of the classes. I'm not new to the profession, but new to the site. And so being able to sit in on some of these sessions and getting to know some of these teachers, the people selected to lead these sessions, they're really great leaders on campus and they really know their craft. They really know, what they're talking about. So it's really great opportunity for me to be new and have all this information about kind of what structures are in place at Duncan. How are people grading? As an intervention teacher, we look at grades a lot. We're looking at academics. We're, especially freshmen. Our focus a lot right now is on freshmen, making sure that they don't fall behind. So it was great for me to be able to have opportunities like this already created for me that I just had to show up. These appointments were sent out through our Outlook. And so it would remind me, oh, don't forget, you have this session you need to attend. And it wasn't a lot. It was once a month. And it was, right after school. And it was, for me, it was a great experience. I got to go with really anyone who was new to the site. We're all kind of not required, but highly recommended to go. And so, so we would go to these sessions. And so it was nice. You kind of have almost like a cohort, right? So it's everyone that starts together, we're going through these sessions together. So we have already kind of these defined groups that we can go to for, clarification. Oh, do you remember when they talked about that? And then, like I said, we have these point people on campus that, if we need a little bit more understanding around the grading or checking for understanding, I know at least one person. If I don't know anyone at the site, I know at least one person that I can go to and talk to about it. So having something like this for your site or for even not in an educational setting, but just having an onboarding process of sessions that are maybe topics that are highly asked questions or practices or anything around your specific business or company, I think would be really great to have to address some of those common concerns or questions.
And I like what Louise said, that it's teachers sharing the real life. So all of these people are teachers, current teachers who have classroom experience in these topics. And it wasn't just a handbook where someone's reading to off a PowerPoint and you just follow along, or like an HR department. And also this, when I did mine, it took me 20 minutes to make the presentation, and then it was like an hour-long presentation. But it ended up making my life so much easier because I didn't have to re-explain myself to all these stressed out teachers as they came in and asked me what I was talking about with linked learning. So it's just kind of a little bit more work up front, but overall the year has been so much smoother and beneficial for everybody on my team. All right. So breaking down the support. So these are just 6 things that I've identified could really benefit your school culture by supporting your new people. So we're going to go through these 6 and break them down a little bit more and give some examples. And remember, this could be done at a school site or any sort of profession.
So during our summer, it's really great. The week before we start, we really talk about the rules of the school. So we do have some supervision responsibilities of signing up. We make sure that our teachers are aware of some events that are going on. We're a very busy school. I mean, just taking a look at this month alone, we had portfolio, we had valedictorian breakfast, we're doing parent teacher conferences in the springtime. So there's just a lot going on. And also making sure teachers are aware of how that could impact their classes. That's really important because, field trips, what's going on. So it's kind of nice when they have, all right, well, half my students aren't going to be there. So maybe, my lesson plan should look a little bit different. Mm-hmm. We are on social media. That's where actually I get a lot of my information about this school, and that's on our Instagram page. And our teacher librarians does an amazing job kind of showcasing everything that's going on, what's to come, and just ways that you can be a part of the school. Important phone numbers. That to me is so essential because we have, I don't know what everyone else's looks like, but we have this huge kind of list of all these numbers. And I know that sometimes, when I call one person and they're away, it's always nice to know like other important phone numbers that you can contact. So like we have our school social worker and, some teachers, and understandably so, I was in the classroom where they feel like, they need to get a hold of them, that something's going on with the student that they know. Teachers need to have more than one phone number to contact, and so the intervention team, we make sure that we kind of alleviate that stress by making sure teachers know all the important numbers to call. Sometimes the best way to get a hold of the front office is to call the main line, rather than a certain teacher or a certain person in the office, because they're either not at their desk or they're getting a lot of other calls. Even etiquette for email responses, like maybe it's not best to reply all, just little things like that could really help out new teachers. And then, having them fill out a fun questionnaire of likes, dislikes. I know sometimes we do birthdays and stuff like that. So it's nice to kind of make sure that right from the get-go, they feel involved. They feel like they can go to someone. Like I said, when I first started, there was that intimidation of I didn't want people to know what I didn't know, where now it's like, hey, just checking in. And, just the more, the better for everyone. So clear school. Oh, I know. Okay. So one of the things that we do at Duncan is offer support. So we have ways we talked about a parent teacher conference. Some of our teachers don't know how to talk to parents, calling them, making that phone call. It can be very intimidating what to say, especially during parent teacher conferences as well. Because the parent's coming from a very concerned perspective, it may come out a little differently at the conference. So making sure we provide our teachers with a script on ways that they can communicate with parents. So kind of they have that, you start with the positive. This is what the student's doing really well. This is what they can work on. Here's opportunities, that they still have, stuff like that. The other thing is that I think sometimes there's teachers, and I know I did this a lot, where support and appreciation is kind of mixed together. I need more support, but teachers also need to feel appreciated, especially new coming in. Something that we do at Duncan is we do on Fridays coffee and waffles for teachers, teachers to get together. We also have the Duncan Ladies Club where all the ladies to get together, where you get to know, even our interns, our student teachers are all involved with this as well. But I think having knowing that there's people you can call at any time is really key to all of it. You don't have to know how to do everything. There's people here that will help you, even if it's, like I said, making a phone call.
And there's even been instances where teachers were thinking of moving to a different site, but didn't want to leave their friends and their support group. So when you create that sense of belonging, you're going to keep those teachers that are really good and effective and part of your school culture. And it just really builds up each year that you keep a nice, steady staff.
Yeah, I love Duncan, and I was in the classroom for a long time, but I was a little burned out from, teaching English, and AP Lang. And I knew I wanted to stay here because I loved it here. I just needed something new. And luckily I had a good relationship with my admin team to say, hey, what what are some other things I didn't know? I thought teaching was just it, as, my background. So it's nice to know kind of opportunities to grow outside the classroom. Oh, so professional development, this is one of my favorite because one thing that we had here was a literacy focus. We wanted teachers to understand how literacy worked in their department. We weren't expecting people to, because a lot of people assume literacy, they want us to write papers like an English teacher, and that wasn't the case. Literacy looks very different. So one of the professional developments, which is key for teachers to grow, that we focused on was literacy, and we had the San Joaquin Writing Project, which is something in Fresno that we have that where they came and they showed us what writing looked like across the board, what it looked like in the math classroom, all the way to the heavy truck classroom or the nursing classroom, which was really important. Also linked learning. We're a linked learning school, so what projects could look like, how we work together. So those professional developments allowed a lot more collaboration, which I think is so key to new teachers, is being able to collaborate, being able to be a part of the decision making. I think there's so much value when you have teachers give ownership, and a lot of the new teachers coming in, they have great ideas, a lot more technology. They know a lot of the newest things that are out there. So that's kind of really neat when you can offer specific professional development that is the focus of your school.
So when we think of onboarding new teachers, we think of all those things that are really important, like the rules and the protocols, but you also have to remember that they're new to the site and they may be feeling a little shy or nervous, and they're also humans. So doing a really easy questionnaire about them as a person, not their professional person, but them as just a human, can really help with making them feel comfortable and safe. I remember Jen and Dom, they did a little questionnaire like this for the freshman success team, and then would just bring random snacks that you put on your questionnaire. So something so simple, it takes maybe 2 minutes, and it can be a really big impact in that person feeling heard and seen and valued as a person. And we're not just teaching robots. So just little things like snack, free time, something interesting about you, and not having them stand up in front of the whole school and say it on day one was very important.
Yeah. So the next, I guess, thing we're going to talk about a little bit is work-life balance. Prior to coming to Duncan, I was an instructional coach. I was coaching new teachers. And this was something that came up a lot with new teachers, was them wanting to feel like, they had something to prove. They wanted to stay late and come early. They wanted to, volunteer for all these things, because they wanted to feel like, that the administration made a good choice in selecting them as a teacher, and they wanted to earn their keep, right? But as a coach, we would try to really encourage teachers. I think John might have mentioned it before. Take the first 2 years, 1 to 2 years, just to learn your site, learn your subject matter, get your instructional practices kind of under your belt, get your classroom management underway. Then you can look at, okay, what am I interested in, or what are some areas or gaps that this site might have that maybe I can step in and support. And so we really encourage teachers to be included, to be there and present, but also make sure that it doesn't become your whole life, because it can become your whole life very, very, very quickly. And so we just recommend taking that time to acclimate, and then really looking at, I think one thing I would tell my new teachers a lot is try not to take it home with you, because it's gonna go on a field trip. You're gonna take your papers home, and you're saying you're gonna grade them. It's gonna go in your cart. You're gonna take it home. You probably aren't going to get to it, and it's going to come right back to work. And so we just really would try to help teachers understand, like, the work is going to be there. And then also looking at, I know when I was going through the credentialing program, they never really told me what to grade and how to grade and what was important and what wasn't. So If you have someone on campus, a mentor, someone that can kind of help, I know as instructional coaches, we have one here on site, which is great. But kind of help those new teachers through that process of, okay, let's look at your assignments, let's look at your standards, let's look at what you're asking students to do, and determine what is it that is going to demonstrate that mastery of that standard. That's what we want to grade. That's what we want to look at. Because that's really telling us what students are capable and are able to do. The busy work, the notes, I mean, it depends. I think there's value in those too, but you can't grade everything. And that's the biggest thing. You can't grade everything, and you can't do everything. So we really want new teachers or new employees to kind of be able to find that balance between giving everything and having your own life outside of work and the students here. And then the other thing is we're really fortunate. Our admin team, they luckily have family and young kids as well. So they're very empathetic into, when there are staff members that kids get sick or we have, doctor appointments or there's other health issues happening. So our staff is really luckily very empathetic and very accommodating. I haven't always had that at my other districts that I've worked at and the other departments that I've been at. But here, just knowing that if something does happen, I go to my administrator and say, look, I have to leave. My daycare called. I got to go pick up my child. They're always very accommodating. And that balance between accommodating and not taking advantage of, I think that's also something that just to be wary of. But yeah, just making sure that you have that balance because the work it's going to be here. There's always going to be something to do. There's always going to be something to grade. So making sure that you make that time for yourself is huge.
Yeah, and I remember grading a bunch of essays and I was just so overwhelmed. And I finally brought it up to admin and they said, oh, do you need a grading day? And I'm all, that's a thing, a grading day? And they're like, well, we can't give you a day, but we can find you coverage if you need. And I had never asked about that. I was taking it home. I even was coming on the weekends because, as an English teacher, I was like always behind. But it wasn't until I was honest, with my administration, they were like, oh, we didn't know, please, and there was more support there as well.
So another thing that you need to think of when you are onboarding new teachers is they may not be coming with any supplies. I've moved twice, two major school moves, and I left everything because it was purchased by the school. And so you have to think about they are going to need all those supplies, and it's the little things like the glue sticks and the crayons and the notebooks because they may not be able to order it right away because budgets and how that works. And they may have been left stuff in their classroom that wasn't very good. I was left full containers of old worksheets that were used. So you have to make sure that they have extra resources and that they have them for day one so that they can be effective in their teaching. And you can even throw little snacks in there. That always helps too. But that is a really great way to show you're being a support for them right off of the bat. I remember one of my first teaching jobs, the admin stayed after school to help me paper the walls and do the borders because I just didn't know how to do it. And I thought that was so great and so supportive. And it started the relationship off really nice and strong. And then they had all of these supplies. Even when I taught summer school, the admin would bring me a bucket of supplies. And they're not required to do that. They just made sure that all the teachers had stuff to be successful because it trickles down into your students. They need you as a teacher to feel supported. So 75% of new teachers report that there's a lack of resources, and that's a significant barrier to their effectiveness. It's difficult to teach a class day one when you don't know how or where the paper is. Where do you print? How do you make the copies? Is it stapler broken? What's the protocol if the printer breaks down, which always happens. But that's a huge barrier that's not seen a lot because those new teachers don't want to seem needy. And so they'll just try and figure it out. But in reality, they need support.
inclusion. So this one, so one thing I recall when I started here, staff events. So it was at the beginning of the year. There, our staff went bowling. And so I had never gone to. I've worked at a few different districts, a few different schools. I had never, before school started, had come to a place where they got the entire staff and gave them an opportunity to build community and build friendship. Yeah.
Redress.
Yeah. And I had no idea. And they said every team had a different theme, and you had to come dressed up. And I ordered a costume. Like I didn't know how far it was going to go, but it really set the tone for the type of environment and the culture of the school that I was coming to. And it gave me an opportunity to kind of, get to know people more in an intimate, because I was on a smaller team. So I got to talk to more people. And it was just, for me, it was just it's a great memory I have of being like, wow, this school is different. Like they are going out of their way to make sure that people feel included. They're going out of the way to provide opportunities for people to make friendships and get to know other people, because it can be a lonely profession, and so having those opportunities and those specifically planned events, I feel like just really helps add to that feeling of being included. Being a new person to a new place, it can be difficult. So having those things already planned out was great. Leadership opportunities. So I know that there are a few different committees on campus. There is our admin do, share that these opportunities are available. Like I said, we try not to have the first year teachers or new teachers kind of go, but they are there, and they come out in various ways, like the committees. We have the teachers that lead some of these onboarding practices. So making sure that those opportunities are available, and as well as advertising that they are, I think really helps in building that community at your site or your workplace. I think this was mentioned earlier, supervision signups. So like we said, we have a lot of events. So that list of events comes out, and then we have a document that everyone can go and sign up for whichever event they want to supervise or be a part of. We do have a required amount that we're supposed to supervise throughout the year. So being able to have that opportunity to go and sign up, I think really helps. You can sign up with your friends. Oh, we're all going to go during, our prep and sign up together. So you're able to kind of make those choices. Administrators or other leaders asking teachers their opinion. I feel like our administration does a pretty good job of reaching out to staff, teachers, and getting their feedback. Kind of leaning into the parent-teacher conference that Dom talked about. We kind of asked teachers, their opinions and what worked for them for this conference. It's a huge event. It's 9 through 12. The fall's over 4 days. And we really wanted to make it as smooth and seamless as possible. So kind of asking teachers, they're the experts, they're, the ones that are going to be in there having these conversations, what format, what process would work best for them. You get more buy-in. You get, teachers are happier if they get to make their own appointments, we found, versus us assigning them, the times. So we changed our operation to allow teachers to have more ownership around that and autonomy. So anytime you're able to provide that option of having teachers or new employees have ownership or autonomy, you're going to have more buy-in, you're going to have happier employees, and you're going to have a happier staff. Personally introducing to on-site leadership, I shared that story. The VP walked me around, introduced me to the office staff, the other administrators. So making that time and that effort to really walk your new employees or new teachers to these people that they may need to go to or speak with throughout the year, having that opportunity is huge. And then the bowling, it was non-related, we were all out there bowling and having fun. But it like I said, it sticks with me. We went bowling again this year. I think next year it's going to be different. They kind of switch it up every year.
The laser tag too.
Yeah, so it's just, it's a fun, we're trying to kind of get people to maybe speak to people they don't normally speak to too. I think departments and things are kind of mixed up in the groups that they create. And so it's just a great opportunity to get everyone involved and talking to each other and feeling like, we're all part of the same this insight.
Yeah, even for our winter break, we had a little Christmas party where we did gingerbread making competitions. So something where everyone got together. It was just good laughs. It was a nice time to just, get together without focusing on students or work, and just kind of spending time.
Yeah. So again, 68% of new teachers who feel integrated, they're happier. They report higher levels of job satisfaction. One thing I was also going to mention is our team, our site does a really good job of, I feel like, appreciation events. So they brought taco trucks, to right before break, and so they had tacos out there for us. They delivered Jamba Juice during Teacher Appreciation Week. Our principal goes out and grills burgers when we have different events. So we provide burgers and hot dogs for our staff. So just really getting out there and just, I know they're little things, but they can make a big difference in feeling a part of the site.
Yeah, and our school didn't always have this. I mean, I think we slowly adopted a lot of these things along the way, and they make a huge difference. I mean, just even delivering Jamba Juice was huge. Everyone was excited over that. Right.
So one thing that I saw at a site that I thought was really interesting was mentorship. And so all new teachers, if they're new to the site or the profession, they were paired with a veteran teacher, even if they were a veteran themselves. And it wasn't this very clinical feeling thing, but it was like, hey, Jen, I'm going to pair you with Dom this year, and you guys are just going to have little check-ins and have those check-ins scheduled. Make sure they're, an attainable time. So they're not first thing in the morning, they're not on a Friday afternoon, but maybe it's just a 10-15 minute check-in, and making sure both parties understand that it's a priority, and make it fun. Maybe they each get a Starbucks gift card, and then they can go get a coffee together. And just having that person, that point of contact, is really huge in making someone feel supported. And it's going to have that trickle down effect where it's going to benefit the students. And that's really what is the whole point of this, is when you have happy teachers, you have happy students. And when you have happy students, you have a happy school. So we really want to make sure that there's a partnership. And that could even be with admin scheduling those check-ins as well. And it's not an eval, it's just a nice social emotional check-in. So 20 to 30% of new teachers leave the profession within 5 years, and mentorship programs can reduce this number by 50%. So those are pretty big numbers to be working with. And when you feel supported, you are supportive. And so you want to make sure that you are having those connections being made.
So the last thing is providing spirit gear. So coming to a new school or a new site, if you're able to, having something with the new logo or image for your teachers or staff is really great. I know here they have different t-shirts that they would give out. They have some staff shirts. When I went to the onboarding class, Ms. Zarut, one of the first sessions, at the end of her presentation, she had shirts, coffee mugs, lanyards, everything with our Duncan stallion on it. And I had nothing. So I was so grateful because I said, I have nothing that has anything with the school on it. And so for me, it really made a big difference because then I was able to wear it. I kind of felt more like, okay, I have something that everyone else has. And I kind of felt more like I belonged. And just encouraging, we have a lot of dress up days as well. With our climate and culture director, she has many opportunities for us to dress up in different ways. And so finding, people that will dress up with you. I know our staff, we did for Halloween one year, we were all aquatic animals. We had Finding Nemo. And that was really fun because, we had actually a lot of people participate. And so we took a big picture. And so that was really fun. So just having those opportunities to kind of be kind of fun and silly, and also, you just feel like you belong a little bit more. And like it says, it doesn't have to be a shirt. It can be a cup. It could be a pen. It could be, a sticker. It could be anything. I know I finally got a Duncan sticker to put on my computer, and I was like, oh, I finally got one because, I didn't know where they were. So having something like that can really make a big difference. They're small, but they make a difference.
It also builds that pride in your school. I remember I went to the robotics competition this weekend and I wore my nice like Duncan jacket and everybody wanted to know where I got it and felt very VIP. So that pride is huge. Your teachers should feel excited to be at your site and feel pride in what they do and what your school does. And so that really builds that up. Jen and Dom had designed the funniest shirt and I love wearing it. Yeah.
I got it.
But I love wearing it and the kids think it's so funny. And so that just adds to that layer of like belonging. So all these great things that we've talked about, but what happens if we don't do those things? So I thought of 2 different paths that can happen. It usually ends in a stress teacher, and we've all met a stress teacher. We all have probably been a stress teacher. But that negativity really does spread. Frustrated people tend to spread frustration. It's going to spread to other teachers. It's going to spread to students. Then the animosity spreads, people start talking and it just kind of spirals out of control. Typically that teacher will leave and then they will bring their animosity with them and spread negative light to other sites about your school. And it's really hard to come back from that rhetoric. The other one is you have a stress teacher, they quit. I remember my first teaching job, there had been 6 credentialed teachers that quit. And the students were incredibly hurt and they felt responsible and they were hurtful to other people and other teachers. And it just created this cycle. And those behavior issues spread throughout the entire school. And then there were subs and mid-year hires, and it's very difficult. I've been a mid-year hire. It's very difficult to get those feelings of abandonment out of your students and make sure they know they're loved and supported and get them back on track and get that learning opportunities made up. So if you don't do these things, there's no positivity in it and it's just not going to be beneficial for your staff. So I actually wrote an article on this. So if you're wanting to read more on it, it's on Edutopia. You can just search my name. Are there any questions? If you want to throw them in the chat while I go over this next spiel. I'm able to connect if you are looking for any sort of connection. I post a lot of funny teacher things, especially about my students and our class pet on my Instagram on Teacher Bigs. I'm on LinkedIn and YouTube, and you can email me if you have any questions or comments or concerns. And then I also have 3 workbooks on Amazon. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Courtney. And we hope that this was shed light. Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna just pose a question. I know we're kind of a little bit over time, but I thought I'd pose one of my questions for you. I was curious about I know that community is a topic that's much discussed kind of in coming out of COVID or in a new stage of COVID, depending on how you are considering that. And I was curious about conversations regarding balancing fostering community and growing community when it does involve these acts of labor and work versus and I know that teachers are also balancing burnout and such. So I guess my question is, how do you get teachers to participate in these onboarding activities that will generate community when they're already so burned out by all of the other responsibilities they have? Like, for me, I'm not a teacher, but this looks like, how do I make myself go to book club after work when I'm really tired? I know it's important to maintaining community, but I was curious if you have seen a tension between that and what tips you've given other teachers, or maybe it's not an issue at all. That's great.
No, I think it's definitely an issue. And I think just starting small, we had a teacher who would just every Friday open up her room so we could eat lunch in there. And we didn't really talk about work. We were just checking in, like, oh, how are the kids doing? What movie have you seen? So it didn't feel like work, but what was happening was a community was being built, and those friendships are being built. And I think if you try and keep it simple and keep it natural, you'll have a better buy-in. The sessions, they were highly recommended, but they weren't required. And if there was someone who wasn't able to make my session about linked learning, and I said, that's fine, here are the slides. And so making sure it's not like a gotcha opportunity, like, oh, you didn't go to this and you're not a part of this team, but instead of, remembering that they're an individual with a life and that they have different needs, was really important. And I think naturally people bought into it because it was going to help lower their stress overall. Even though sometimes we don't want to stay after school and do something, but it was once a month, so it wasn't a huge deal.
I am talking to the teachers personally, instead of an email, going to kind of talk to them. Going to their classroom. Hey, how's it going? I just want to invite you. So I know that's always kind of worked, at least for me. When someone it's easy to ignore an email, but when someone comes in and says, hey, I'd like you to participate in this little event we have, that personal touch has always helped. Also providing food. Feeding.
Yes.
Free stuff. Free stuff or food has always worked. So I know that towards the end of the year, we all get burned out, and it's kind of like, oh, let's get together and celebrate might not be the best way to put it. But so we had a meeting where it was technically our meeting, but we had a taco truck. And so, just little things like that where it's like, here, come grab a bite. Let's just talk, and like Katie said, just very small, but I know food helps a little bit.
Yeah. And then I felt like having, so Wednesdays here at Duncan, there's a workout Wednesday. And so one of our teachers leads that workout and, sends out invites, and there's days I really don't want to go, but I know that she always texts me in the morning, don't forget your workout stuff. And that always like, oh, okay, that's right. And I know that once I go, and it's always fun, the people that go, that we have a great time, we laugh, and once I go, I feel better. So I think having like an accountability person too, like someone that's always like checking in on you, kind of like Dom said, hey, don't forget, we're doing this today. Even though you're tired, I still go, and it's great. And I actually am really grateful that I go at the end of it, because I've worked out and I've laughed and I've had a good time. And it's every Wednesday. So there are days where I'm like, oh my gosh, but having that accountability.
We went over. That's okay. Teachers, but thank you for joining. We're very grateful, and hopefully you learned something that you can apply to your site.
Thank you. Thank you, team. I really appreciate it, and I have learned something new. So thank you so much. I will pause or stop the recording.